Let's review the menu records requirements for CACFP. This information is also located in the Idaho CACFP manual in the Menu Planning and Menu Records Requirements section that is located on the Idaho CNP website. Menu records are often referred to as Meal Pattern Menu Compliance Records or Food Service Records. They are required daily to document how meals and snacks served contribute towards each menu component in the meal pattern. The record provides supporting documentation for each meal and snack claimed for reimbursement and confirms the center or daycare home provider planned, prepared, and served enough of each menu component to meet the minimum servings per age group. All claim records, including meal compliance records, must be maintained by the institution and each facility for 3 years plus the current program year. Sponsoring organizations and facilities, centers, and daycare homes are required to maintain daily dated menus which list the menu items prepared and served to participants for each meal or snack service. Some centers and daycare homes choose to serve several meals or snack services throughout the day to participants, but only request approval for a few of them in the site or provider's application. The sponsoring organization and facilities only need to document the meals and snacks that are approved in the sponsor's site or provider application in My Idaho CNP to meet CACFP menu record requirements. Meal pattern menu records must be maintained in written or electronic format and must be made available to SDE or USDA during program reviews with the independent centers and sponsoring organization and during monitoring visits with the center or daycare home. The following meal pattern menu compliance records are required: daily dated menus, standardized recipes, product nutrition fact labels including ingredient list, CN labels and manufacturer's product formulation statements, PFS. Food receipts and invoices must be maintained by centers only. Monthly food inventory is also required for centers only. It is important to maintain a monthly food inventory to determine the cost of food used. This is a requirement per FNS 796-2, Revision 4. Now, let's dive into each type of record that we have mentioned. First, let's review the daily dated menu records for both centers and daycare homes. This is the individual infant menu record. This is a sample state agency form facilities may use. This version isn't required, but if you make your own, it should contain all of the required information. It is important that infant menu records are maintained for each individual infant since infants eat on demand and consume different food items and formula or receive breast milk. Infant menus must document the date, day, month, and year, the infant's name and date of birth, the type of meal offered, breakfast, lunch, supper, or snack, required meal components per meal type, minimum portion size per age group, all actual food items offered and served for each meal or snack, an indication of the brand of formula, expressed breast milk, or if mom came in to breastfeed, and lastly, if food or formula is supplied by the parent guardian. For the infant meal or snack to be eligible for reimbursement, the center or daycare home must offer at least the minimum serving portion size for each required meal component. If the center or daycare home provider offers at least the minimum serving of a required component, the provider is only required to document the actual item offered. For example, expressed breast milk, EB, formula, or the actual solid food. Since infants eat on demand, meals and snacks are recorded on the individual infant menu record based on infant meal service times. For infants in care, an infant's meal service time is the start of the meal service time approved by the center or home's My Idaho CNP application to the start of the next meal service time, with one exception for the first approved meal served and the last approved meal served. For the first meal served, the start time may be when the facility opens. For the last meal served, the end time may be when the facility closes. Here is an example of a facility's center or home hours of operation and approved meal times that meet the meal service time requirements listed above for children in care. The example also shows how infant meal times are determined based on the approved meal service times in a site or provider application in My Idaho CNP and the facility's hours of operation. In this example, if the center or daycare home provider offered all required breakfast components to an infant in care between 6 a.m. and 9:30 a.m., they would record all food items offered, including the formula or breast milk, during the breakfast mealtime under the breakfast section of the infant's individual infant menu record, and the infant's breakfast is eligible for reimbursement. Here is the state agency's sample daycare home daily menu record. The record must document the date by month, day and year, provider's name, the type of meal, breakfast, lunch, supper, or snack, minimum serving sizes per age group, actual food items served each day, type of milk served each day, whole, 1% or non-fat, and if the milk is flavored, non-fat or 1%, if a food item is CP, commercially prepared, or HM, homemade, and if grains were WG, whole grain rich. Each item on the menu must be the actual item served. For example, apple, green beans, Cheerios, etc. It is important to denote the meat alternate in a main dish. For example, beef burrito, chicken fettuccine, etc. If the facility is using the organization's menu software program to document the daily meal services claimed in CACFP, it is important that the system has methods to meet the meal requirements. For example, if food items are homemade, the system may require a recipe number or recipe name. This would meet the documentation requirements for homemade food. This is the Center Daily Detailed Menu Record. Centers may also choose to use a daily menu production record in place of the daily detailed menu. A sample of the Center Daily Detailed Menu Record is available in My Idaho CNP in download forms. The detailed menu record was developed to streamline the menu record process for centers, since the standardized recipes, CN labels, product formulation statements, and food labels support how the food items credit towards the meal pattern. The detailed menu record supports that all required meal components were offered by meal type, and the center planned and prepared enough servings for the number of meals and snacks served. The detailed menu records must document the date, month, and year the meals were served, the center name, serving sizes of each age group for all required components, actual food items served each day, the type of milk served each day, whole, 1%, or non-fat, and if the milk is flavored, non-fat or 1%, substitutions made by the planned menu, which food items were CP, commercially prepared, or HM, homemade, the grains that were WG, whole grain rich, the planned and prepared number of portions per age group, and the served number of portions per age group. As with the daycare home daily dated menu, the centers must also record the actual item served and denote the meat alternate in a main dish. Again, if the facility is using the organization's menu software program to document the daily meal services claimed in CACFP, make sure the system has methods to meet the menu requirements. Here is the standardized recipe form. When serving combination homemade menu items, the center or daycare home must have a standardized recipe to credit the components of the recipe to the meal pattern. The key parts of a standardized recipe are recipe name, which adequately describes the recipe and enables you to categorize the recipe if desired. For example, your categories may be entree, bread, vegetable, and so on. Recipe number. This is important, but a good practice if you plan to use the recipe analysis workbook in the interactive food buying guide. Ingredients. All products used in the recipe. Weight or volume of each ingredient. The quality of each ingredient listed in weight and or volume. Instructions. Detailed directions for preparing the recipe. Temperatures. Cooking and baking temperatures. Serving size. The amount of a single portion in volume and or weight, for example, half a cup carrots or 1 ounce roll. Recipe yield. The amount, weight or volume, and number of servings of prepared product. For example, 20 half-cup servings or 20 1-ounce rolls. Meal pattern contribution. Since the product will be served in reimbursable meals or snacks, the recipe must include how the product credits to the CACFP meal pattern. Remember, the contributions will differ if you are serving different serving sizes to each age group. The next menu record is product nutrition fact labels for grains including cereals, yogurt, and non-dairy beverages. Product nutrition fact labels that include the ingredient lists and product name are necessary for daycare homes and centers to determine if the product is a credible food item and the correct serving size is provided per age group to meet the meal pattern requirements. The labels support the meals and snacks claimed for reimbursement and that they've met the meal pattern requirements. These documents are reviewed by the state agency during program reviews when verifying the claim. Grain labels are used to determine if the grain is credible, if it is whole grain rich, and to determine the serving size per age group. If the item is a cereal, it also allows you to determine if the cereal meets the sugar limits. You will also likely use the Exhibit A grains chart to determine crediting for your grain items. Yogurt nutrition fact labels support that yogurt meets the sugar limits, and non-dairy beverage labels support the non-dairy beverage meets the nutrition requirements for milk substitutions. CN labels and product formulation statements are the fourth menu record on the list. Either a CN label or product formulation statement is required for all commercially processed meat alternate, or combination food items that are served and counted towards meal pattern components. This is a CN label verification report that was developed to assist state agency reviewers, CN program operators, and food industry to verify the status of a CN label and the validity of a CN label copied with a watermark. It does not replace the requirement to maintain CN labels. Daycare homes and centers may maintain the CN label from the original container, a photo of the label on the container, or a watermark copy with attached bill of lading invoice. This verification report can be found on the FNS website. Here is a sample CN label. The CN label, or Child Nutrition Label product, contains the following information: the CN label, which has a distinctive border, the meal pattern contribution statement, a unique 6-digit product identification number assigned by FNS, appearing in the upper right-hand corner of the CN logo, the USDA or FNS authorization statement, the month and year of the final FNS approval appearing at the end of the authorization statement, and the remaining required label features product name, inspection legend, ingredients, USDA statement, signature and address line, and net weight. Here is a sample product formulation statement. If a commercially processed product is not CN labeled, you must obtain a product formulation statement to determine the product meal contribution and the minimum serving size of the product by age group. Product formulation statements apply to grain items, some processed meat items, and processed food in general. The product formulation statement for a commercially prepared food product must be on the manufacturer's letterhead and include product name and product code, a description of all ingredients as listed in the food buying guide for child nutrition programs. For example, grain products must be specified whole grain or enriched. The ingredient weight per serving of each ingredient to be credited, the weight of ingredients specified as raw or cooked weight, and the weight or volume of the product serving size or the number of pieces per serving. Manufacturer's authorized individual name, signature, and telephone number, and detailed breakdown of how the product credits towards each component of the meal. Additional resources for guidance on CN labels and product formulation statements are the tip sheet for accepting processed product documents and the USDA CNP tips for evaluating a manufacturer's product formulation statement. Sponsoring organizations and centers must maintain records of the cost and quantity of food purchased, cost reductions, and amount of food used. Required food cost records include procurement documents, including bids and contracts, purchase orders, delivery receipts, invoices, canceled checks, itemized cash receipts, purchase records, cost records for transporting, storing, handling, and processing that are not included in the purchase price, credits, returns, rebates, and inventory records. Food sales receipts and invoices must include the following information: name of vendor or supplier, date of purchase, description or name of item purchased. If information is not clear on receipt, center must record on receipt name of food item, purchase unit, gallons, case, can, total number of units purchased, gross price per unit, any refund, rebate, or discounts taken, total cost of all items purchased, and sales tax if applicable, and total cost with sales tax if applicable. The monthly food inventory record is a list with quantities noted of all food and milk available in the center during the month to prepare the meals and snacks served in the center. The monthly inventory must be derived from either a perpetual or physical inventory system, or both. If a center uses a perpetual monthly inventory system, the center must complete a physical inventory at least annually at the end of the program fiscal year. A physical or perpetual inventory record must be maintained for each claiming month. Here is a sample monthly physical inventory record form. The monthly inventory records, food receipts, and invoices are necessary records for the sponsoring organizations of affiliated centers and independent centers to determine the cost of food used each month. All sponsoring organizations of affiliated centers and independent centers must compute the cost of food used in the CACFP claim month. The monthly cost of foods record is a required procurement and financial record. For more information on the cost of food used in CACFP, please refer to FNS Instruction 796-2, Revision 4, and the Procurement Requirements section of the Idaho CACFP Manual. Here is the sample cost of food used worksheet. All of these worksheets, documents, and forms are available in My Idaho CNP under Download Forms. CACFP requires a great deal of documentation to ensure that meals are properly prepared and served. By having these controls in place, your program will benefit from both a compliance and operational standpoint. These documents help to ensure compliance and also provide tremendously useful information toward the successful operation of CACFP. Thank you for your participation in this training. This training was funded using U.S. Department of Agriculture 2018 training grant funds awarded to Idaho Department of Education to provide training to sponsoring organizations, centers, CACFP employees, and daycare home providers.